This is K-12 Tech Talk. K-12 Tech Talk. The podcast by K-12 Techs for K-12 Techs. Real conversations, real arguments, and real banter on trending K-12 technology topics and issues.
Live from the somethingcool.com studios, this is the K-12 Tech Talk podcast. I am Josh. With me tonight is Mark.
Good evening.
And Chris is absent. This is episode 123 of the K-12 Tech Talk podcast.
Why is Chris absent again?
Well, he really didn't tell us tonight why he was absent, but we do know that his new network got installed this week. He got new switches, and he is now in charge of their network. So you can draw a conclusion as to why Chris might not be here tonight.
His internet's down.
It might be his internet. It might be he's got a loop. You never know. Actually, I did talk to him earlier. Everything is fine.
Okay.
He's been put on leave by Sue again. No. So actually that talks about one of our sponsors real quick, Extreme Networks. Dominic over at Extreme Networks, they are putting switching and gear and wireless infrastructure in most of the major sports stadiums. And their tag right now is, if you want a network as stable as pick your favorite NFL team or Major League Baseball team, then buy Extreme Networks. And Chris is going to soon realize that he now has, I guess I need to silence my phone. He now has one of a very stable network, just as stable as Major League Baseball and NFL stadiums. So welcome to the club, Chris. And if you want to know more about Extreme Networks, reach out to Dominic Mayer, and he can get you some information about Extreme Networks. We'll put his email address in the show notes if you are interested. So it's been kind of a busy week for vulnerabilities, and I guess some bad things happened. It started out Sunday. So I got back in town. I guess it was not really a secret that I was out of town.
Yeah.
Yes.
How'd you think of our episode?
And Mark, thank you very much for the Birds of Prey flashcards that I now have. I will give you a Birds of Missouri flashcards whenever you come to Missouri.
Serious question. Did you think that was a
honest
seagull?
To God. So here's the thing. I'm sitting there with my family, my mom and dad, my wife, my son. We're sitting there eating, and there's all these dang pigeons in the rafters. And I was drinking, as you do on vacation. And I look over and I see that sign that says, "Warning, seagulls are aggressive. Don't feed them." And I start laughing, and I point at the sign, and then we're all looking up at these pigeons up in the rafters. So I took the picture and sent it to you. I was not thinking. I don't think I thought that was a seagull, but honestly, I didn't put two together until you text back and said, "That's a pigeon." But yes, I do know what seagulls and pigeons.
All right. You redeemed yourself.
But so we got home Saturday, Sunday morning. I'm catching up on things, work email, reading some websites. And I saw a headline about Fortinet and the FortiGate having an SSLVPN vulnerability, an RCE attack. So I text our point of contact at Fortinet, Chris Illingworth, one of the guys who's been with us for quite a while. I said, "Hey, Chris, is this FortiGate thing that I'm reading on BleepingComputer legit? Do I need to worry about this?" And he's like, "Yeah, there was a firmware update released last Friday. Go ahead and apply it when you get a chance." So I went into work Sunday afternoon and applied it real quick. And Fortinet is one of our sponsors on the show. And what I'm about to say, you might say, "Oh, he's just saying that because Fortinet's a sponsor." But in all honesty, Fortinet, I think, is one of the companies out on the market that they are very transparent when it comes to having issues like this and vulnerabilities that are known in the wild, that they try and get in front of them and release a firmware patch as quickly as possible. And they go out of their way to kind of inform their user base of the issue. I don't think all manufacturers do that. So I think that's a nice trend. I know they catch some flack. "Oh, what's the monthly Fortinet vulnerability?" Which that, tongue in cheek, whatever. But I would rather have a vendor that is saying, hey, we have this problem, we have this fix, this is how you fix it, than one that tries to hide it. So, and I think there was a article that came out. I don't remember if it was CISA or who it was that said that they were seeing it leveraged in the wild, the vulnerability, the RCE attack that was being that had come out. So if you have a FortiGate and you're leveraging SSLVPN, patch your stuff. I think I guess it's 7.2.5, I think, and 7.0.12 are the newest firmware revisions. So if you're running a Fortinet, get that patched.
Is it called a FortiFix?
You know what? If it's not, Mark, it should be. And I saw on LinkedIn the other day, their marketing person made a post that they have a new product line or a new offering called FortiFlex. And I wanted to comment so terribly bad because Chris Illingworth liked it or commented on it. So that's why it showed up in my LinkedIn feed. I wanted to comment so bad. When is the FortiPotty coming? But I didn't. I was good. But yeah, they've got FortiFlex. I like the idea of a FortiFix, Mark. I think they could that could be their new thing, FortiFix. So Fortinet, if you're listening, we know you probably are. FortiFix. When you issue these alerts, these bulletins, apply the FortiFix. That's like it.
Okay. What else for vulnerabilities? I think it was a pretty busy week.
This MoveIT transfer service. I still don't quite understand what MoveIT is. I'm reading it. It sounds like FTP kind of, but it's file transfer service. They've got a major vulnerability, and I read this afternoon, Johns Hopkins University has fallen for this. The state of Missouri, where Chris and I are, the state of Missouri actually released a statement that they had fallen victim to this. So, and it's very widespread. I think there was something on Twitter where like the count of public entities was like over 40 so far that have been hit with this or have admitted to being hit with this.
Okay.
And about 38 minutes ago, CISA released a statement, an alert, saying that Progress Software has released a security advisory for privileged escalation vulnerability in MoveIT Transfer, a managed file transfer software. Threat actor has exploited this vulnerability to take control of systems. CISA urges users and organizations to review the advisory and follow the mitigation steps. We will link this in the show notes, but if you use MoveIT, you better move it. You better move it and apply the FortiFix. It's gonna be one of those nights, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll link the notes to this. Mark, we had talked about this a little bit today. You were starting to see some traction online about it. You guys don't. Do you know of anybody that's using it?
No, I don't. I mean, I've seen the headlines and stuff, but personally, I don't know anybody that uses it.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Johns Hopkins, but it's one of those things that I think that's one of the trends that we're going to be seeing now. It's instead of a direct attack, it's going to be that's kind of that supply chain attack type environment. Where and that was kind of the CISA thing that Chris dealt with a couple of years ago. It wasn't necessarily that clients were being hit, but the underlying tool that was being used was hit.
Right.
So then that made X number of people vulnerable.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I like the site Down Detector.
Yeah.
Because you can see all the different sites that are down. It's a really kind of quick and easy way of seeing is this site down or is there like an underlying provider that, like if it's an AWS issue, you can see that there's multiple.
Because that happened, Monday, Tuesday? AWS East 1 went down and like half the internet died.
Oh.
Yeah. It was, I think it was Monday evening. Yes, okay. I like Down Detector too, but you kind of, it's crowdsourced, so you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Mark, one of the items you wanted to talk about tonight was Passkeys.
Yeah, well, so we've been exploring Passkeys. It is a thing that has come out very strong from some of the major providers. Microsoft's come out with their Passkey, and Google's come out with their Passkey on World Password Day, I think is the official holiday. They all came out with kind of a joint announcement about it. And you had mentioned earlier this week too that, hey, you're exploring Passkeys, because I think it was about maybe midweek last week where Google announced that Passkeys are now available for enterprise or organizations, whereas previously it had been available on personal accounts about a month ago. So have you tried it?
I set it up on my personal account. I have not set it up on my enterprise, on any of my enterprise accounts yet. It's one of those things. I'm at home. I run on a PC, but I haven't really signed into another device yet with my personal account to know if how the passkey works. And I already have a YubiKey on all of my accounts, so some of that stuff I think is a little bit duplicated.
Okay.
So Mark, if I'm someone that has never heard of the term passkey or how it kind of integrates in this realm of multi-factor authentication or that enhanced security on an account, explain to me, Mark, what a passkey does for me.
So I think in order to explain how passkeys work, you have to kind of go through the other options for MFA. And CISA or CISA, as Josh describes it.
Our friends there at CISA,
they have a very good fact sheet about implementing phishing resistant MFA. So it's one thing to roll out MFA, but there are different types of MFA, or they kind of have 3 or 4 different categories of MFA, and some of them are more secure than others. So here's where I'll give kind of my personal thoughts on this right now. More than anything else, K-12 was really focused on MFA and implementing MFA for staff, and really trying to, as a couple episodes we talked about students and exploring ways for students. There are 4 layers of MFA that CISA, whatever, kind of talks about, and they're really trying to push you to be as secure as you possibly can. I do think right now in K-12, everybody needs to push for some level of MFA.
Yep.
So, I don't want anything I'm going to say here to say, well, we just rolled out SMS MFA and now you're telling me that's wrong. That's not wrong. It's right. And they're just layers, and there's some that are more secure than others. And you would figure out what's right for your environment and what's right for your people.
I think there's an important point there too, that SMS MFA, boy, that's kind of hard to spit out. SMS MFA, is right for a certain population of users.
Yep.
There is a population of users, maybe your superintendent, those higher value people that could be targeted of a SMS type attack, or and you may get into those in a second, where they might be more well suited for either an authentication code or a passkey. So
yes,
keep on going, Mark.
Yeah, so let's jump into SMS or voice MFA. That's the most common thing you see out there. You see it on bank accounts. You see it on district accounts and Google accounts and Microsoft Office accounts. It's the most common thing that more and more people are familiar with, and they're starting to get comfortable with. So the idea of an SMS or a voice MFA is that when you want to log into a site, you have a phone number that's registered, and it's going to send you a code, either through a text message or it's going to call you and verbally read it out. Now, Josh, how can that be exploited?
So what's the SMS? The SIM swapping?
Yes.
Where a bad guy can more or less take over your phone number on their phone with a SIM card.
Yeah, now SIM swapping, I've heard less and less about it in recent years, but years ago it was very, very common where somebody would actually phish your telecom provider and then get them to switch you up to a new phone, maybe call as you and kind of pretend to be you, and then they swap that phone out, and then all of a sudden they now have your phone number, log in with your username and password, and then that SMS code comes to their phone instead of yours.
Yep.
So go ahead.
It is a threat, but in the grand scheme of things, how much of a threat, it's hard to say. But again, I come back to, I think there are subsets of users, or a subpopulation of users that might need that next level of protection.
Yeah. So I mean, SMS and voice MFA is still better than no MFA. So I
Yes,
don't want to say that
absolutely.
this is the least secure. It really is. It is a phenomenally much larger security measure than just having a standard password. The next layer up that CISA talks about is an app-based authenticator. So instead of getting a text message or a voice, you have a mobile app that is going to push a command. So if you have Authenticator on your phone or Microsoft's version,
Or
you log
Authy,
in.
or yeah.
Yeah, Authy, I think. It's going to say, "Hey, you're trying to log in from New York, New York. Is this you?" And then you have an option that says yes or no.
I'm going to disagree with you. When I think Authenticator and Authy, and I can't remember what Microsoft's is,
Mm-hmm.
that's the code generator one, right?
We're going to get there.
Oh,
That's
okay.
you're jumping
Stealing your
ahead.
thunder. Stealing your thunder.
But no, it's a very, very important one. In some of these apps, you can have a yes or a no from an app.
Gmail. The Gmail app is a great
yeah.
example of that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Now it's a step above because you can't swap out a SIM. It's an app that's logged into your account on your device. But what some of the concerns about that one is that it's prone to user error. And so if you get a notification that says, "Hey, you've logged in. Is this you?" You gotta make sure you push the right button, because if you push the yes and it's really not you, that person just gets in. And so what they're saying now is that you're starting to see more and more attackers pushing out. Let's just say I'm gonna try 100 different usernames and passwords. There's a pretty good chance that one person might just by default say yes, that's me, and let you in.
Well,
Yeah,
and the other vulnerability with it too is they might try it over and over and over and over again on one account,
right.
so that it just annoys the hell out of you on your phone, and what's my phone doing? Okay, fine, I'll hit yes. Okay, now they're in.
Yeah, and if you think about the phrase I've heard is MFA fatigue, you get MFA for just about everything. And if you're somebody who's logging into different sites all day long, you may not be thinking, and you may just click yes and allow somebody into your account. So that next layer up after an SMS is this app-based authentication that is just a simple yes or no.
It's funny, MFA fatigue. We're still doing security camera rollouts, and we have to sign into the web console to add the camera and give it a name and all this stuff, and we have to MFA to get into that console. It's like, oh my gosh, we have to MFA into this thing again. It's just funny to hear us in my office complain about that.
Yep. Now, the next layer up, that kind of third layer up that you just described earlier, was that app-based authentication, but with a code. So that's the one that you're traditionally familiar with, where you open up an app and it has a code that cycles through every 10 or 15 seconds. That is not prone to a SIM attack or an SMS attack. It's resistant to push bombing or push fatigue, because you're not just clicking a yes or no. You have to manually type in a number. And so it's a little bit more secure. It's not the gold standard, though, because there is still the concern that if you are on the phone with somebody who you think is your bank, and they call and say, "Okay, I'm going to log in, or I'm going to authenticate you. I just need you to authenticate this number," and you verbally say the number over the phone, that person can still get in. So they could be on the other side of the world, and you can still provide them with that token, that one-time password, that number match, that kind of thing. So
Right.
that app-based one-time password, kind of disposable password, is the second most secure way. But it is still better than everything else before. But there's still issues where you can get attacked.
Yep.
That top layer, the very, very top one, is what CISA talks about as being phishing resistant MFA. And this is an MFA where you cannot authenticate unless you are physically located at your computer. You're physically there. So this is where passkeys come into play. This is where PKI cards come in. If you've ever been in the room with somebody who has a very, very high level of security clearance, they're going to pull out not just a token, but they're going to pull out a card and slide that into their computer. And that we just had this conversation with somebody the other day, and they opened up their card, their wallet, popped a card into their computer, and they're off and running.
I was just going to ask you if you've been around somebody that has that card, Mark.
I have, and I cannot say who, but I can just say that this guide that I'm looking at is very close to the person who provided us with this card, that idea. So, where passkeys are going though, and you've got to think about from a not from a convenience perspective, but from a technology perspective. A passkey, if you set up a passkey either through 1Password or through Microsoft or Google solution, you're authenticating the device. Maybe it's your laptop with a fingerprint, or a cell phone with a fingerprint scanner, or a facial recognition scanner. And then that device is going to be Bluetooth connected to your laptop, or it's going to be actually your laptop. So if you have a laptop with a fingerprint sensor on there, you can use that as your passkey. And you have to physically, and that's the key thing, you're physically authenticating into a device that allows you into that website. So you cannot authenticate somebody that is on the other side of the world. You have to be in the room with that second factor. You have to be within 15, 20 feet away from your computer in order for that passkey to actually say to your computer, yep, this is the right person. Go ahead and let them in. So This is that FIDO web authentication, public key infrastructure based. That's what CISA is referring to as phishing resistant MFA.
And again, I come back to the statement that I guarantee you, no matter the organization, there are a handful of people in your organization that level of protection is probably the level of protection they need. Probably your domain admin level accounts. Yeah. And that's the first thing that comes to mind. Somebody that pays the bills, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and they even say in their guide too, we strongly urge system admins and other high value targets to implement phishing resistant MFA. This isn't your normal right now,
right?
But Google is rolling out passkeys to everybody. It's available on personal and enterprise devices. Microsoft's rolled out theirs. 1Password is coming out. They have it in their beta, and it's coming out full this summer. And here's the thing that I know this is controversial to say, it's super convenient. It is so much easier. And if you haven't enabled passkeys, I recommend trying it out for a day or two, because you are now authenticating. There is no password. Right. It's not a second step. This FIDO key replaces your password. So it adds convenience. The average user thinks this is super convenient because I'm not entering a password anymore. It just needs me to hit my finger on the fingerprint scanner or hold my phone up to my face. They think it's a convenience factor. In reality, this is the highest level of MFA that you can implement.
Yeah, so if you are a Google admin account, or if you are a Google admin, Google Workspace school, give it a try. Enable it, try it on a couple accounts, see what happens.
Yeah.
Real quick, let's talk about VIZOR, one of our sponsors. Shout out to them this month. VIZOR integrates with Google Admin and your SIS to keep an accurate inventory of all your assets. Maintain visibility of who has what device, track repairs, costs, funding sources, warranties, device end of life, and streamline one-to-one checkout and check-ins with barcodes. I know that's a hot topic, check-ins. Mark, you're getting close to the end of your school year, so that's going to be a topic for you guys soon.
Yeah.
But I follow a couple people on Twitter, and they've been talking about how end of the year device check-in, and it's always one of those things. Oh, that's a headache. So give VIZOR, check out VIZOR, VIZZ, not an S, ZOR, and I'm still waiting for the VIZOR to make an appearance, maybe at ISTE. You never know.
When's your last? You're in summer school right now. When's your last day of summer school?
Our last day of summer school is the end of the month, so I think June 29th.
Okay.
So we're getting close. We're getting real close to the end of summer school. It's funny, man. We have nearly 50% of our student population at school for summer school.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Is
of
it
kids.
all like enrichment stuff, or are you guys just
Most
failing
of it,
kids left and right?
no,
and they
no,
gotta
we're
come
not
back?
failing half of our student population. No, most of it's enrichment. The only classes that are kind of makeup classes are those kids that need to retake classes the high school
Mhm.
level, high school or middle school level. The
Yeah.
most of it's enrichment at the lower grade levels, and they get to do really fun stuff. Really fun stuff, like they're going to the park and going to a movie and stuff like that. So yeah, it's not your typical school by any stretch of the imagination.
Cool.
So one of the things that keeps coming up in discussion, and this came up on K-12 Tech Pro today, Google Mail app and third-party mail app access. So I think it's one of those things of if you really want to go in that mindset of you need to kind of crank down mail access on where it's accessible and how it's accessible, and you want to verify who that user identity in a meaningful way, I think third party mail access is one of the things that needs to be looked at. And invariably, we have a conversation with an employee when they start or they onboard about getting their mail on their phone, and invariably the conversation revolves around, oh, I'm using my mail app on the iPhone. And we always try to push people, no, let's not put that in the mail app. Let's download the real Gmail app and get it installed with the supported app.
Yeah.
So Mark, how do you view that? Do you view using the mail app or built-in mail app, third-party mail app, whatever you want to call it, on iPhone mail app? I know Samsung has their own mail app. How do you see that as an issue? Because it's likely connecting on the back end and with IMAP, right? I don't think they use POP anymore.
No. Pop is if you still have Pop turned on, just turn it off. There's no reason for
Yeah.
anybody to be connecting over Pop. But IMAP is the most common protocol used to connect. I will go back to when I started 10 years ago in this role, and that's when we were slowly migrating, not slowly, we're quickly migrating to a cloud-based. I remember this meeting super, super clear as day. We were in like a 2 or 3 day kickoff at headquarters for Google, and we were going through all the rapid fire decisions to make in the technical configuration, and one of them was IMAP and POP. And at the time, we were Exchange. We were moving to Google, and I have some very high level execs who were insistent that they're going to keep their Exchange or their
wow.
what was the client at the time? It wasn't
Outlook,
Outlook,
probably.
but it was
Oh.
Entourage. It was something else. But they were insistent they're going to keep it. And I said, okay, we got to keep IMAP turned on. And I remember this clear as day. When we broke for lunch, they pulled me out of the meeting, pulled me into a separate conversation. It was like 3 of us, and they said, you need to turn IMAP off.
Oh.
And it was the one like configuration decision where they were very insistent that we turn off IMAP.
Wait, who was very insistent?
Google.
Oh, when you
Yeah.
said headquarters, I thought you meant your district headquarters.
No.
Oh, la-ti-da.
Well, we're at Google headquarters, and they pulled me aside and told me to turn off IMAP, and I said,
Wow.
I'm sorry, I'm going to date myself here. I'm brand new to the role. I can't do this. I'll piss off all the execs.
Wow.
And so we left it on, and I will say I regret that decision very, very heavily. And we were just meeting a couple days ago about like, what's the pathway to turn off IMAP? And we were even pulling reports
Interesting.
of who's using IMAP to connect, and it's a high number of people that are using these phone apps.
And I, it's no one's fault. I think. My personal opinion here. I think you see that predominantly with iPhone users because it's easy. There's a built-in mail app. Oh, I'm going to click it. Oh, I'm going to hit add account.
Yep.
Oh, no big deal. Easy peasy. It's done. So there's a little conversation to be had there. But I really think if you're going to that, we need to secure our mail, and maybe you're being required to have multi-factor authentication from your insurance company.
Yep.
I think you have to go that step of disabling IMAP and definitely POP. If you, like Mark said, if you haven't disabled POP already, you need to be disabling POP.
Yeah. Well, and at the time, web apps were just not as good. They were not as robust. There was no greater value in forcing your users over the web app over the thick clients. Thick clients or thin clients. And so it was just like, why would I do that to my users and force them to use a subpar mail experience when they can use a mail app? That's changed a lot. The web clients are, in my opinion, far sufficient or superior to what you get on an email client. But flipping that switch is hard.
Yeah, because you're going to have people that are ingrained. Yeah, I keep coming back to the phone part of it. Well, I go to this one app for all my mail in my phone.
Yeah.
And now my work mail isn't there. Well, one, that's probably a good thing. Two, let's seriously migrate over there. So yeah, I think that's definitely a discussion to be had, especially if you're going to the steps of trying to secure your mail. Oh, Mark, I have a funny story. So I get back from vacation, and one of the applications, we've had this big thing in Missouri with multi-factor authentication. One of the software companies that's used pretty widely in Missouri, won't say who, won't say what, that did not support MFA this week released a software update that enables the feature set for MFA. So the amount of schools whining and complaining about not having MFA on this certain software package worked, and now they support multi-factor authentication. So whining and complaining, let this be a lesson. Whining and complaining does pay off.
So, but let me ask you this though, and this happened to us where we had another provider, same thing. They rolled out MFA. And they used some like third party as their MFA. And so now I feel like I'm a little bit fatigued where I have MFA installed on or enabled on everything I possibly can.
Yeah.
But that means I have like 3 or 4 different MFA options for the different apps that I use. So was it an MFA that you're like, great, this integrates quickly with what we're already doing? Or is it like, oh, this random app that everybody now needs to download?
It's not app based. I'll just leave it at that. It's not app based.
Oh,
but
no.
to your point, anything that requires an app, if it's the rotating number apps or whatever, if it's got the QR code to add that into Google Authenticator, I'm putting it in Google. Like my list in Google Authenticator, you can scroll several times in my list in Google Authenticator now. So if it'll support that, that's where it's going. I don't care what the application is.
Okay. Well, that's good then.
Yeah. So I have, actually quick, let's talk about managed methods real quick. This will be our last ad for the episode. So managed methods, it's that wonderful time of the year, not Christmas, but budget cycle. I know our budget cycle, it's June, it's the end of the year. You get to do all of your renewals. Favorite thing, right? You forget about one and then you get nasty mail or they turn off a service. But one of those renewals you might have might be your Google Workspace for Education renewal. Managed Methods has a document that'll help you determine what the right fit of the different flavors of Google Workspace for Education, what that right fit or what that right flavor is for you. So, and they'll also give you some tips of basic settings to check out, security settings and student safety monitoring considerations to make sure that you're not overlooking a setting somewhere. So if this sounds interesting to you, or if your Google Workspace for Education renewal is coming up and you want some another set of eyes to look at it and make sure you're not overspending, get a hold of Managed Methods, managedmethods.com.
Are they going to tell you to turn off IMAP?
And they'll probably tell you to turn off IMAP.
No.
So do it, Mark. So when you were at Google headquarters, was Larry and Sergey there? Were they?
They were in the bathroom. But yeah,
you never got to meet them. Okay.
No, this was we're on the East Coast, so it was the Massachusetts Google headquarters, not the main one in California.
So we started our fiber project this week. Chris is redoing his physical switches. we started redoing our fiber, and we thought we had this plan. We had directional boring companies show up today with their machine, and I'm all excited. We had everything marked with dig right of where all the gas lines were, all the water lines were. We had our private fiber marked. And they're trying to expose some of that stuff in the ground so they know where it is, so they can bring the auger thing up to it and make sure they don't hit it. And in that process, they call me and they're like, hey, we want you to come look at this. We found something, and we're not real sure what it is. So I go, they're, 2 football fields away. So I go walking up there. It's like 95 degrees today in Missouri. I'm sweating like a pig. I go up there, and they had exposed 2 sets of conduit about 4 foot down on the ground, 1 blue conduit, 1 orange conduit. And we didn't know where they ran. Well, they spent a long time. Like, we had no one knew this stuff was here. Long story short, they are 2 empty conduits that run from our middle school to, we think, the intermediate building. We haven't traced it out completely. So instead of, and it just happens to go the exact path that they were going to bore today. So instead of directional boring, they are going to just use those 2 empty conduits to accomplish the same thing without spending all that time with the machine that directional bores. Yeah, it's pretty wild. And no one knows. My best guess is that this was put in the ground 20 to 25 years ago, if not longer than that. And what really surprised me more than anything, was that it wasn't collapsed. Like, they were able to get a pull string through it. They were able to get a fish tape through it. So it'll accept fiber. I really expected that it would be collapsed at somewhere along the way. So yeah, you never know when you're going to find random conduit in your ground.
It's like the half dark fiber, but without the fiber.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, congrats.
See, our schools are all within walking distance of each other. So it's nice to be able to have that dark fiber, privately owned dark fiber.
Wow. So do you get the money back from the cost savings of not having to bore?
We're going to have that discussion.
Oh,
the owner, he called me a couple different times today, and one of the times he's like, yeah, if that conduit's good and it's empty the whole way, we're just going to use that. That's plan A now, right? And I'm like, yeah, that's plan A, because you save time and money, right? He's like, yeah, right. Yeah. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So we'll see. He's coming down tomorrow to check it all out tomorrow morning, bright and early. So I'll plant that seed again and see what happens. Yeah.
You should approach him and say, I've talked to the superintendent. I've talked to the teachers. They're
so
super excited that the money we're saving from not having a bore is going to be used for, and then just name something.
Yeah. A new drone for my office.
Or just say like YubiKeys, and now we can go MFA.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're saying we can't do MFA?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
See, I'm not that big of a jerk, Mark.
No drones, please. Please. No drones.
So something else, we talked about K-12 Tech Pro a little bit ago. One of the things I noticed, I know the Reddit going dark stuff, their protest, whatever. So if you want to leave Reddit, or you're upset about what they're doing to those third-party API companies, K-12, check out K-12 Tech Pro, check out the community, join over there. There are sponsored memberships from companies. So if you can't pay, or your district doesn't want to pay for the membership fee, those companies will pay for you. Don't be afraid to click that button. And you can join over there. There's that's where I said we've got some. I got one of the talking points tonight from there. There's quite a community over there that's willing to help each other out with different ideas, questions, problems, and they've got quite a wide variety of people. Memberships are several international, some Canadian folks. I think there's a gentleman from New Zealand, a gentleman from Japan. And a good number of states. I think 40 states is what Chris said, I think. So yeah, go over, check out k12techpro.com and hit the community button. I guess Midwest Tech Talk is coming up in about a month, just over a month. Mark is making the trek to Missouri to do the keynote.
Yep.
So check out midwesttechtalk.com to find out more information. I know Chris would love to have you. Chris, you will see Chris and the gang there.
He is pumping up. There's quite a lot of swag that they're giving out at that conference.
Oh yeah, they do amazing jobs with swag. Yes,
I've gotten a sneak peek at some of the stuff.
Oh yes, I know. Yes.
No, you don't.
No, I know. Yeah, right. We'll.
Josh will be making an appearance at the conference. This is really exciting.
One way or another. Yes.
One way or the other, Josh will be there.
Yes. Mark, any closing thoughts tonight?
Nah, I got nothing.
You got nothing?
I'm out. Right. I'm out of thoughts. This is a pretty good conversation. We had a lot of stuff to talk about. This is what happens when we don't have Chris here.
Exactly. Let's see. Your school year is about over, right?
Yeah, we got one more week.
And then do you go straight into summer school? I forget. I know we've talked about this.
Yeah, we go towards late June is when our school year ends, and then we have 4th of July, and then we'll pick up right after the 4th of July.
All right, cool. All right. So if you enjoy this podcast, please visit our sponsors, send them a message, let them know that you heard about them from us. Check out our sister companies, K-12 Tech Pro, Midwest Tech Talk. And if you enjoy this content, please share it with your friends, share it with your state organizations, share it with Google. That whoever's willing to listen, share it with your teammates. If you need to bang home the idea of passkeys, send that information to your teammates and let them listen what a passkey will do for them. Thanks for listening. That was episode 123. We'll see you next week.
The views and opinions expressed on the K-12 Tech Talk podcast are the personal opinions of Josh, Chris, and Mark, and do not represent the views or opinions of our sponsors or other organizations that we're affiliated with. The material and information presented here is for general information and entertainment purposes only. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.